sometimes in the life of a couple, both of you experience something that is difficult. And in those moments, I have a term that I use with my couples. I say, soak together before you sink together. So just literally, if they have a bathtub, I ask them just to go and sit there without a word. Just experience the pain without trying to fix, without trying to get out of it. Experiencing it together. That's profound in creating intimacy. That's one. The other thing is,
you have this concept of sexual harmony. Can you describe what that is and how couples get that?
Sexual harmony versus sexual chemistry. Chemistry is elements come together, explosion, and very impressive, and in that moment in time, and then goes away. Sexual harmony is based on intimacy. So if we really look at a sexual harmony this way, we evolve over time. A lot of couples come to me with this ailment almost, it hurts them, that, oh my God, I really, really want this that we had 17 years ago. So what is important with sexual harmony is,
how do you advise someone who's in that sense of, is this the relationship where I can have everything that I want?
Well, for couples who are listening,
I'm Layla Martin. I'm your host of This Tantric Life. This podcast is for you to learn about and be able to use the incredibly powerful system of Tantra in your life. I have been teaching and studying classical and neo-Tantra for over 20 years. And when you apply that to sex, love, and relationships, as I love to do, you end up having conscious relationships, the deepest, most epic and magical sex, and the kind of intimacy that you get to be grateful for on your deathbed. Building world peace one relationship at a time is the mission of Dr. Sara Nasserzadeh, a globally renowned and award-winning author, speaker, and relationship expert. With a PhD in social psychology and specialization in the fields of human sexuality and relationships, Dr. Nasserzadeh has worked with countless numbers of individuals, couples, and organizational clients across 41 countries. Dr. Nasserzadeh has been a sought-after cultural advisor, speaker, and expert facilitator at high-profile events hosted by governmental organizations, UN agencies, academic institutions, and Fortune 500 companies. Her third book, Love by Design, 6 Ingredients to Build a Lifetime of Love, is the result of her 2-decade-long research on the status of thriving relationships and its key ingredients, namely attraction, respect, trust, shared vision, compassion, and loving behaviors. Dr. Nasserzadeh, whose work has been featured on NPR, the BBC, ABC, CNN, USA Today, and New York Times, is based in Los Angeles, California. Welcome, Dr. Sara. I'm so thrilled to have you.
thank you. Lovely to be here.
Yay. So I loved when you walked in and I was like, what do you want to get out of this podcast? And you were like, what we are doing is not working and I will not die until we have fixed it.
Yes.
Specifically in terms of love and how we're relating. Can you share what's not working and what is your model for fixing it?
Sure. So fixing it is a strong word, but I would like to think that I'm doing it. Basically, after you're sitting with hundreds, if not thousands of couples and individuals who are disillusioned by our notion of love, you come up with an idea that as an expert, what is my responsibility? So if I really think that I'm privileged enough to sit with all of these people, hear their pain and sorrow and hope and shed tears with them in joy and sadness, so what is my role? Am I also going to leave the world the way that I found it for my children, for, the rest of the world that come after us? Not really. That's why I really would love us to change the way that we shape our discourses around love, because that's also going to change our perception, the way that we receive love, the way that we experience it and express it. And also at a micro and macro level, we can make a difference, because when we have fulfilling relationships, we are really fulfilled with our love within ourselves, within our intimate partnerships, then it has a ripple effect into the world and it's going to make the world a peaceful place. So that is the mission. Not a small, but doable.
So you said that people are disillusioned with love. What is that disillusionment?
The disillusionment, put very simply, is many of us, regardless of where in the world we grew up, we thought or idealized this model of love that I call submergent love. You have to submerge with somebody. 1 + 1 = 1. your other half, better half, stolen half, lost half. And we don't even stop a moment and question, where did this come from? It all goes back from in the Western mythology that is the basis for all of our science and many of our philosophy and thinking in Northern America and Western Europe. It comes from the Greek mythology, that they believed that humans were of two, like, for example, two heads and four arms and legs and whatnot. And then the gods decided that we were too strong, so they split us in half.
Yeah.
Therefore, for the rest of our lives, we are going to go and look for our other half. That got perpetuated in our way of thinking to believe that, well, there is somebody, that person out there, that I'm going to find them, or they're going to find me, even worse, right? So with that mentality, when we are in that sexual infatuation, which sometimes happen for many people, right? At the beginning of a relationship, that spark that people talk about, sexual chemistry that we talk about, then we mistakenly think that, oh, that is love. So now this love that is supposed to be good for creating experiences, the production of cute little babies with a spectrum of different genomes that, make them healthier than if you go with somebody who you're not sexually attracted to. That's supposed to be an experience to do that. But then over a period of time, we thought that, oh, wouldn't that be lovely to base all of our lives and relationships and different roles, parenthood and in-laws and business partnership, all of that based on that little thing, the feeling. So that is why people are in pain. That's the disillusionment. 1 + 1 = 1. So when we fall in love, finish each other's sentences, and we cannot live without them, then we decide to move ahead and start with the bond of socio-legal bond of marriage or cohabitation or having children, whatever that the next step for people is. That's that. What I'm offering is the emergent view of love, which is basically based on the systems way of thinking. When I was reading the book by Jamshid Qarachedaghi, Systems Thinking, he is one of the fathers of the systems thinking. Basically, the idea is in a system, different parts come together. If the quality, quantity, and the nature of the interaction of those parts are conducive to create something bigger than them, that is of them but not them, then we are talking about an emergent entity. And he talks about a log and a spark that come together in the case of love, and then in a conducive context with enough oxygen and warmth, it's going to create that fire. The fire only exists, has a chance to exist, as long as those ingredients are available to it. So I borrowed that, put it into multiple research, and then realized that that actually works, not as a concept, but actual tangible thing that people can do in a daily life. So what I wanted to offer was 1 + 1 = 3. And without that, people can't even go out for other relationship types that people would like to experience. Some people, for example, if they want to be polyamorous, monogamish, invite other people into their coupledom or their unit, they need to first make sure that there's enough space. So this model is not only for heterosexual or for people who are just in a coupledom, but also for people who are thinking of other models of relational configurations that I introduced in my book. So it's important for them to know then from 1 + 1 = 1, you can have amazing hot sex dangling from chandeliers perhaps, but over a period of time, that is not the foundation that you would like to rely on solely to build a lifetime of that fulfilling, thriving relationship with. And then I wanted to do research to see whether I can figure out what those ingredients are when it comes to thriving relationships. And our research showed 6 key non-negotiable ingredients. So that's where we are.
I'm here to let you know that if you want to stay connected to my teachings and if you want to support this podcast, the best way to do it is to sign up for my email list. Email list sounds old school, and yet it is where I share my most intimate teachings, the path, process, heartbreak, and triumph of my life, and so much of the content that I make for you on a regular basis. So the way you get on the email list is by heading over to laylamartin.com, put your email address into any of the boxes. You can also sign up for cool practices like sex magic or energy orgasm, totally free. Heading on over to laylamartin.com, signing up with your email address. This supports the podcast. It supports this entire work and is the number one way for you to receive the highest teachings of this path. Okay, I want to dive into the 6 non-negotiable ingredients, especially because you call this your book title, Love by Design, which I love because you can use these ingredients to actually design your love story and your partnership. And what I understand from what you're saying so far is that in this model where I'm going to find someone and our alchemy is just going to produce the dream partnership, the dream love. And if I found the right person, then we will have the amazing love, sex, and partnership. And where people, from my understanding, get disillusioned is that the right person doesn't necessarily make the dream partnership, because partnership is something that you create and build based on who you are. And I think this is confusing because limerence, right, that stage of falling madly in love, is one of the most seductive peak experiences in human life, right? It's so poetic. It's so amazing. And as science says, you're basically on drugs. You're on the best drugs in the universe. Inside your own body. They're endogenous drugs that your nervous system makes, as you say, so that we procreate. You're obsessed with the person. You have to be around them. You're going to make a baby. But we took this, especially in the West, and we decided that that was partnership. And to me, this is very akin to having peak experiences in life and thinking that unless your life is a constant peak experience, then it must suck. I think all of us want some peak experiences in life. And I think when people hear this, sometimes they're like, but I do want the limerence. Like I do want that experience. And what I've seen is that people actually can have peak experiences in their relationship if they take care of it, if they nurture it, if they build it, like you're suggesting. But those peak experiences happen, let's say, if you even get 1 a month or 2 a month, I think most people are satisfied with that. But we got led to believe that it should be this constant state. Whereas in life, right, a peak experience really is a couple times a month. And the rest of the time you're washing dishes and you're going to Costco and you're doing, and if you're like, oh my God, my life sucks because it's not a constant peak experience, you're going to hate your life. And so I think there's a place, right, for people to be madly in love, to have these exquisite sexual experiences. But when we think that that is the only thing we should be experiencing, we end up hating what true partnership is, which is so much more than that. And so I love what you're talking about in systems theory, which is we're creating a system together and we actually have to build that system. And the system is greater than the sum of us. And when I pay attention to the relationship as its own system, its own entity, and I don't think that my partner and me just being in love is enough to create that, then I'm going to build a system that is incredible, that is well designed, and that holds us to both live our lives, to thrive together, to do whatever we want to do together, whether it's building a home, making money, raising a family, raising a pet, right? And at the same time, hopefully, if that system is beautiful and healthy enough, to also be able to have peak experiences. And I've seen that those peak experiences don't have to go away even 25 years later.
Absolutely.
If you're building an emergent model of love.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you brought it all together. Absolutely. Beautifully said. So the thing is, how do we do that? A lot of people say, okay, so this is the literacy that in this day and age, I go down that path with you. Then what am I doing tomorrow morning? What am I doing differently tomorrow morning? Right? So I think that's one of the reasons that I wanted to give people the end to end, as we call it in, the business terms, right? End to end pathway for people. So first they do an assessment, which we can talk about. It's a validated assessment that I suggest to anyone in a coupledom. So they do that. It's like a checkup. that we go to a health checkup every year. So we do that. And then we see the cracks. All of us have cracks. I've been married for 24 years now. So over a period of time, there are certain things that are working, not working. And then work gets busy. You have children, you have this and that. And, taking care of parents or, whatever that your thing is, right? Distractions in life. One thing that happens is you let go of the cracks. Oh, it's okay. It's okay. We'll get through this. You won't get through this because those are the cracks that if you don't pay attention to them, they become wedges. And over a period of time, couples don't come to me because they say, oh my God, this person slept with somebody else or, whatever. That happens too. But they usually come because they don't know each other anymore. Physically, mentally, relationally, financially, they don't know each other anymore. So those cracks, we need to keep an eye on them every year to make sure that we go on a strong basis. So it's the strength-based, hope-based model rather than pathology. What's wrong with your couple then? What is not working? Let me predict if you're going to fall apart in 2 years, That's one. The other thing that you mentioned about that peak experiences. In the generation, and us included, although you're much younger than me, so you're probably native to all of this social media and, like on demand.
It's still very strange to me too.
It's strange, but dopamine inducing.
So yeah.
What it does is it creates this illusion that high at all times is possible. So more and more people turn into drugs. More and more people turn into intoxication with alcohol and basically losing their minds because they cannot face the limitation of reality that we cannot do that. You cannot put this body through cortisol all the time. You'll get burned out. I mean, a lot of good thing can also lead to burnout too. So it's not like just the bad thing or the stress or, whatnot. So I want to kind of subtitle this conversation with that as well, that within the sociocultural context that we live in, if we don't reach for that high all the time, then there's something wrong with us. We are settling, right? So I want people to know that you're not settling. This is okay. And your normal is your normal. It's okay. And pay attention that if there's nobody, there's no you.
Yeah.
Don't run it hot and fast all the time.
Well, I've really appreciated this model of dopamine-fueled relationships, right? So dopamine makes us want new things, and it creates that chase, and it feels good to desire, right? And especially women, they actually want that feeling of desire in their bodies. So some level of dopamine is beautiful and healthy, to desire a vision of the future, to desire an experience, and to pursue, even to desire sex, right? To want to make love to your partner is a dopamine experience of I have a vision of something that I want, and then I have this desire to pursue it. So not completely bashing dopamine, but we've become hijacked, right? Like all I want is the next Uber Eats delivery. All I want is the next high, the next social media hit. And we've forgotten the other states of beingness, of being happy with what is. Like literally finding a sense of satisfaction in exactly what is. A kind of serotonergic experience of bliss. And psychedelics actually that amplify the serotonin receptor experience, they give you that quality of I'm in the here and now. Like I don't want to be anywhere else. Like it's actually so amazing here, right? The flowers are beautiful and food tastes amazing. And the person in front of me is like a living expression of the divine. This actually is what we start to experience when we get out of the dopamine hijack. And oxytocin, which is a sense of deep love and bliss, especially with people that we're familiar with. And so I think without us even realizing it, so much of our relationships have been characterized exactly as you're saying by this dopamine kind of addiction of I want the next high, I want the next high, I want the next high. And true deep love is actually, I'm so happy to be with this person. I'm so happy to run an errand with this person. I'm so happy to be in the kitchen with this person. And this oxytocin of like, wow, I have this beautiful foundational love with this person. I think what's so hard is that when people are chasing the dopamine high and they don't know how anymore to be happy with what is, then those simple moments don't feel pleasant anymore. They actually feel like stressful, like something's missing. And I think that's what happens when we're too much in that dopamine addiction, is that normal life, instead of feeling blissful, like a cat lying in the sunshine, right? The way our bodies were designed to experience the happiness of life, it feels like something is missing. And that something missing period, I think exactly to your point, is what kills a lot of long-term relationships, where it's like actually nothing was missing. You just habituated your nervous system to feeling like it was supposed to be fireworks all the time. And so in the everyday moments, which could be filled with this sort of subtle joy, it actually feels like, wow, what's wrong?
So you mentioned about psychedelics.
Yeah.
If we have a pause, if we really go and rely on all of our faculties, even without psychedelics, we can experience that moment of presence, moment of not running. In one of my recent newsletters, I talked about JOMO instead of FOMO, joy of missing out versus fear of missing out. Because I think also as a culture, if you don't work hard enough, run fast enough, if you're not juggling so many different things at the same time, you're not a capable person, you're not doing enough, then you don't deserve this and that. So it's a whole mentality that is ingrained in our culture. So one of the other reasons that I was hopeful that maybe Love by Design could speak to the heart of people is at this moment in time, I think we all put a lot of emphasis behind the sense of agency that we have. What is it that I can do today to make a difference in my life now at this moment in time and in the future time, right? So that's why also I called these the ingredients, not pillars, because I wanted to emphasize that it's evolving. I'm evolving. You're evolving. The relationship is evolving, right? The world is evolving, for God's sake. We didn't know we would have a pandemic, right? So there's a lot that is to be said about the balance, about the importance of pause, intentionality, and then knowing where to put your efforts. Because a lot of people come to me, they are working so hard. I'm really inspired by their work, working so hard on themselves, their relationship. But then when I look at the content and where their resources go, I'm like, oh my God, this is never going to get you where you want to go. So that's another thing that I'm hoping to offer, that, okay, so if you have the energy and will to put your resources somewhere, could you please consider putting them here? Because we have multitude of research by now, including 2 pieces of significant research that we've done with 312 couples and then 159 couples to show you where to put your efforts, where to put those limited resources that we have, right? And then to get to that thriving relationship.
I'm excited to take a moment and share with you about the VITA coaching certification. This program has been around for almost 10 years, and it is my highest offering. The sexual wellness industry is forecast to be a $125 billion industry by the year 2026. Why is this? Because people are more ready than ever to express their sexuality and build deeply connected, meaningful relationships, and also, obviously, to have the most outrageous orgasms and erotic experiences of their lives. But most people are never taught how to do any of this, how to have extraordinary relationships, how to have the sex they really crave. They're looking for qualified, confident professionals to teach them. And my VITA Sex, Love, and Relationship Coaching Certification is a powerful 1-year professional certification that's helped more than 2,000 coaches make their way to becoming incredibly successful and highly paid sex, love, and relationship professionals. But this program doesn't just train you in every aspect of the coaching process so that you can build a successful online business. VITA Coaching will also walk you through the personal transformation of a lifetime, because the best coaches have done the work themselves. You'll discover so many transformative techniques like breathwork, meditation practices, self-pleasuring tools that you'll apply to your own life first, and then you'll use these same proven tools and techniques to get laser-focused results for your clients. We also hold an exclusive live embodiment retreat just for VITA coaching students and alumni every year. In this retreat, you'll experience 7 days of live teaching with the VITA teachers and I, and really refine your skills as a sex, love, and relationship coach. So if you feel called to claim your spot in this multi-billion-dollar industry and transform not only your own life, but the life of so many others around the world, you can get on the wait list now at laylamartin.com/VITA coaching. That's laylamartin.com/VITA coaching, VITA. And so in that research, where do you put your efforts? Where do you put the resources?
So the 6 ingredients, first of all, if I may go back to why I call them ingredients, different phases of life, different mood that we are in every day, different things that we experience in our relationships. You know, when, let's say you have a recipe for a soup, right? You want to make the soup, you know that these are the exact absolute ingredients that go in, right? But one day you might want to chop more celeries. One day, maybe more salt, less salt, right? So that's the ingredients. So the ingredients need to be there, these 6 ones that I'm going to introduce. Non-negotiable, people, non-negotiable. But they can decide that today, a little bit more respect is needed. A little bit more compassion is needed, right? To get you through that phase or day, right? Okay, now the ingredients. One of them is attraction. And attraction is not just that sexual infatuation or sexual attraction or chemistry that we talked about. Attraction is financial, social, it's physical, it's familial, it's political, it's by interest. So there are so many different reasons that we want to be around another person, attraction. And then the other one is shared vision. Where are you committed to go, especially go together, especially when you don't feel like it? So where are you committed to go together, especially when you don't feel like it? Shared vision. And there are different categories: geographical, again, social, political, all of that. You know, where do you live? Which climate even, right? That's important. The other one is respect. Do you know your partner? Do they know you? For everything that brings you pride and shame? For everything that you define as boundaries for yourself? Are your boundaries borders, or they are actually invitations to the other person as how to be around you, how to see you, how to perceive you, how to treat you? And we can talk about all of these. But one of the things that I often tell people is, in this day and age, a lot of people, to create boundaries, healthy boundaries for themselves, they become what I call acquired narcissists. So they become narcissists like that to be able to protect themselves, to be able to convey a sort of boundary, which is again border, walls around you, not invitations. So one way that they can actually differentiate passive-aggressive way of being around their boundaries is to see if they can actually communicate in a loving and firm way. Can you please not do that? Not joking, like, you know, and often I say, put a scale behind it. When you do that, it really hurts me. One, like 10 out of 10. Or this doesn't really matter to me. It's 2 out of 10. That scale system is magic. You wouldn't believe it, you know? So that's important. Moving on to the next, compassion. There's a lot of conversation around empathy. And let's set the record straight for empathy and compassion. Empathy, depending on who defines it. I'm a social psychologist and a psychosexual therapist, couples counselor, researcher, a linguist. So people need to know that about me, right? Because the way that I talk or verbalize a concept, or I go at it to do research, might be different from another person from, let's say, for example, neuroscience background, right? However, I'm going to go to neuroscience right now. Neuroscientifically, neurophysiologically speaking, empathy is I'm feeling with you. So the best example I can give to people is if you have two, I don't know how much physics our audience know, but let's go to the resonance for a second. If there are two instruments together, let's say both of them, one of them has a string and the other one is a percussion, whatever that is. If you match the percussion's vibration of the sound waves to the string, to the level that it can vibrate with the string, the string at certain point starts to vibrate. That's the best way I can explain what empathy is. You are actually resonating, you're vibrating with the other person. So for example, at the beginning of our conversation, we did a little meditation. So with that, we are vibing with each other. We go there, an empathic space. So that allows for deeper conversation, right? Now, empathy has time and place in a coupledom, especially during intimate moments, during sad commiseration moments. During those moments, empathy, beautiful. But on a daily basis, it kills a relationship. If you go there immediately as a default, what I recommend is compassion. Be there for the other person without making it about yourself. That's compassion. So if it's empathy like this, compassion is like this. I'm there, like the platinum rule versus golden rule. Golden rule is do to others the way that you want to be done to you, which is really shooting people in the foot. And then the platinum rule is doing to the other as they want you to do. So that's really important to take away from this conversation about compassion, especially when it comes to intimate space and sex, right? The other one is acts of loving. My editor was asking me, the whole book is about love. Why do we need a chapter in loving, right? So again, coming from the emergent love perspective, love is just an element. Being loving, love only can manifest through the actions that are behind it, the acts of loving. How can I make you feel special? Even in the multitude of people involved, how can I make you feel that our relationship, our tie, our attunement is exclusive? So how can I show you that you are not just everybody else? Through tender touch, tender words, exclusive compliments, exclusive energy that I bring to our space, right? So that loving behavior and giving you benefit of the doubt more than any other person, right? And then the other one is trust. And the way that I describe trust is based on reliability and consistency. A lot of people, when we talk about trust, think, who slept with whom? Immediately, that's where their mind goes. But how about if I told you something in confidence about my mother, and then tomorrow night we are with our friends, you got drunk and shared it with a bunch of people that I didn't want them to know, right? So that's social trust, you know? So, and the whole concept of privacy versus secrecy comes into the trust conversation as well. So these are the ingredients that I'm introducing, and with a touch of different definition around them.
And so in describing them as ingredients, right? And you used a soup metaphor. It's like you wake up and you're like, think we could use a little bit more respect today. And I'm going to conscientiously bring respect into this partnership. Is that how people apply the ingredients?
Yes. Let's say, for example, just a tangible example. Let's say your partner had a very, very tough week at work, right? You are observing and you're pretty annoyed because your life is full, their life is full, children are running around. There's no room for you to sit and be the shrink or play the shrink for your partner, right? You're like, get over it. You know, just man up.
Yeah,
you know?
totally.
So, but instead of doing that, you can just go and say, you know what, today maybe a touch of compassion.
Yeah.
Maybe a touch of compassion, right? And then you go forward and say, hey, I'm noticing that you're not yourself. Without saying, hey, you're grumpy. Hey, you're angry. You know, we're not labeling, guessing, invitation, rather than labeling, which shuts the person down, right? You haven't been yourself. Just in a quick moment. And then, all good? Is it still work? And then they say, oh yeah, it's terrible. Do you want to talk about it? No, not now. Or, okay, do you want to just, talk about it over a drink after dinner? Be specific about what you're offering. And then they can say or no, say yes or no. Or today I have a very busy work day, but you know what? If you want to connect with each other at lunch, I can catch you at lunch. So something very specific with time, with what you can offer. And maybe the other person says, well, I could use a shoulder to cry on. Yeah, absolutely. You know what? Can you hold on, because there's a lot, I have to drop the kids off, and then postpone it to the time that you can. Like today, yes, after dinner, let's just connect over tea after dinner. Huh? Shall we do that? So this is actually something that we use in sports psychology a lot, that when there is a reason people cheer people when Olympics were just done, and hopefully this is fresh in people's minds. I was a swimmer when I was younger. So I always appreciated when my coach ran with me and said, Sara, 200 feet, 200 feet, 200 feet. So that is the same mentality that we bring to relationships, right? If your partner thinks that I'm drowning, nobody is catching me, how long am I going to feel alone like this? It's not going to go well. It's just going to go spiral down because of amygdala gets active and then goes down to mimic and bring up all the memories that are associated with that emotion. That's why we go down the rabbit hole, right? In those moments. But that quick, compassionate interaction with your partner can tell them that, hey, hang on, there's a shore, you're not going to drown. So that piece of it is very important. When you ask about the, so how does that look like? Now we have the literacy. How about the fluency? This is just one example that people can use. That in that day, compassion would go a long way, right?
Absolutely. And I love in the Olympics how well like the home country does, right? Like they always win so many more golds just because they're the host country, because of that psychological factor, because of the cheering. I do believe I heard the French booing the US basketball team at the end, and that's okay. I get it. It works the other way. But this idea that cheering on and celebrating your partner for when they do wonderful things or things that really support you, how much that actually does psychologically, because we all want to feel like we can win and that we can actually do something for our partner, that they are actively receiving it and celebrating us.
Yeah, and the basic level, somebody in this world gives a thing about how I'm feeling. It's the same thing with workers, the corporate environment that I consult. It's just the way that you do one relationship, honestly, is the way you do all relationships, from bedroom to boardroom. The same way that you do with your child that is tantruming. All they care about is mommy looking, even like this, checking on me. Somebody cares that I'm killing myself here. The same thing with our partners. And then every day is that. And you can also ask your partner. You can say, hey, today when we go to this gathering, I really would like for you to raise me up.
Yeah.
In front of these people, and then have an agreement so that I'm more respected, because the respect that you show for me would be the respect that ultimately they're going to show to me. So these are the things that the people can really, I'm assuming they're two adults in a relationship. They can sit and have a conversation with each other.
I mean, well, you'd be surprised. It's a lot of two inner children,
In good moments.
Yes,
in good moments.
I'm going to be super real with you. I realized that the number one thing I want in my life is to feel good, right? An amazingly happy life is built on feeling good inside of the nervous system. Those are some of the most challenging feeling states to achieve when we're being bombarded by emails and screen time and overwhelming to-do lists and career and family pressures. And to reset the nervous system to be in its natural state of pleasure and play, that's right, nature actually wanted us to feel pleasurable, playful, sensual. It takes work. Research has shown it can take up to 2 hours to switch from go mode to deep relaxation, where you want to connect and feel good. If you're like me and you don't have 2 hours at the end of the day to meditate, to do yoga, then supplements and plants can actually help your nervous system to feel the ways that you crave. If you're interested in supporting your nervous system to feel the way that you most desire to feel, then go ahead and check out our mood line to shop the entire mood product line and unlock the pleasure you crave. I'm here to let you know about one of my favorite practices practices orgasmic breathwork. So what I've done is I have made 2 different audio guides for people of all genders to train you in how to use breathwork to have more orgasmic sexual experiences. So this breathwork trains you to get out of your head, into your body, to be able to expand pleasure from being localized in your cock or your pussy or intersex genitals into the whole expanse of your body, and to be able to orgasm stronger, longer, and more powerfully. So orgasmic breathwork is one of the most powerful tools that I've ever come across, and you can learn it in a 10-minute guided audio. So you can get it totally for free by downloading it on my website. You can head over to laylamartin.com/orgasmic breathwork. That's laylamartin.com/orgasmic breathwork. You can also find the link down in the show notes. I'm so excited for you to try this practice. It's truly revolutionary and is one of the fastest ways to experience what I'm talking about throughout this podcast, which is a deeper, more potent, more transcendental sexual experience. I created this mastermind for couples because it is the experience that I wanted for me and my beloved. I was like, where can we learn Tantra together? Where can we become masterful at sacred sexuality together? And beyond that, where can we get the same education in how to communicate at a ninja level, and how to create emotional safety for one another, and on how to heal on the deepest levels whatever wounds keep us from staying in love over a lifetime? That's why I made this mastermind. It is going to be super fun because you get to go on the sexual adventure of a lifetime. I'm talking majestic European castles, beautiful nature experiences where you will be trained step by step in how to create erotic rituals and how to make love in an energetic and advanced spiritual way. It is, You'll also get 6 months of in-person classes on relational skills and tools, and also erotic mastery. Everything from how to touch each other in the most exquisitely sensual way, to how to have the most incredible energy orgasms together, to just how to say difficult things in a deeply loving way. You are going to get the advanced relationship training of a lifetime. If this is something you're interested in, you can go ahead and check it out at laylamartin.com/tantric mastermind. So I can imagine people listening, right? There's some people out there who are like, okay, but my partner's not respectful.
Yeah.
Can you teach respect?
That's a very good one. Very good one. And I have quite a few people coming to me with that. Actually, it's really interesting. If I reflect back to maybe 20 years ago, it was mainly women who would say my partner doesn't respect me. But now more and more male clients.
Now we're all just assholes. It's not a gender-specific thing anymore.
It's just that they feel disrespected.
Yeah.
My first question to these people is, are you respectable? That's a big one. That's a big one. If I feel disrespected because I always have to have the leftover of the children, at the table, and I can't even sit down to finish my dinner, and my partner is very cool and calm and sitting and enjoying their food, and I'm just running around the kitchen and I don't even carve 2 minutes for myself to sit down and have dinner. How am I respecting myself? That's a norm in that family, Nobody expects me to sit down and actually carve time for myself, to even have a plate for myself, to have food. And I know there are many mothers out there who relate with that, Or, for example, self-deprecating comments. Very common, especially amongst women. That I often say the narrative that you have for yourself becomes the narrative for people around you. So the way that you characterize yourself, the way that you follow through with the actions, the way that you respect your own boundaries. You said to yourself that I'm never going to show up like that again. But you did. So are you respectable? So that's the first thing. The second thing is, I think it's very important for people to have a conversation around what respect means. As a word, respect means to see, and is to see, to do again, encore. I went to another language. So it's So respect is to see and to see again. So constantly paying attention. Where are the priorities? And it's not just by talking. A lot of my clients talk too much. But when it comes to action, they're not following through. Then it's not the responsibility of the other person to come and do that for you, right? So it's important, carving time. Again, I'm not going to push you to acquired narcissism. There's no need for that. But lovingly and firmly be there for your own boundaries. And then other people learn, including your parents, your siblings, your children, your employee, employer, everybody else, right? So that is the way that we are going to do this. And in the book, actually, I recommend some exercises for people to get to know their own respect blueprint. Because I went with the theme of design, we're going to talk about blueprint. What is the default that I'm coming from? What is it that I know? And whether I would like that to be my desired state, or I would like to change it because it's not serving me at this stage of my life. So that would be something that I recommend to people.
Yeah, I mean, what I've seen is that the vast majority of people, if they care enough, can learn these tools. Like, I would say that I was not a super respectful person, especially in hard moments in my 20s. And that's because I wasn't raised in a way that I always felt respected in my emotions and my experiences. I also think when you feel kind of fundamentally disrespected in your emotions and your experiences, you learn to create that shell around you.
Exactly.
And disrespect other people because it's like a disconnection from how they're thinking and feeling. Like, it's like, I don't even want to attune to how others around me are doing because it's too painful. When I'm young, I learned that that's painful. So I just build a shell and operate in a way where I feel disconnected from everyone because it's so much safer than actually being open to people that aren't meeting my needs or that I feel hurt by. And so I have seen like all of these feel very interconnected in a way that I love you separating empathy and compassion, because I think we've said empathy, but as a linguist, you probably would agree that what people are actually asking for is attunement, not empathy.
Yes.
Because if I'm feeling really sad, I want my partner to notice that I'm sad, right? And they can't have compassion without attunement. Like, if I don't notice that my partner is feeling sad, or if I don't notice that my partner is shut down, then there's no way I'm going to get to the next stage of compassion. But I think empathy, we overdo it, and empathy subtly makes you codependent. Because if my partner is sad and I become sad, then I'm not going to want my partner to feel sad anymore. So I'm going to be like, you have to stop feeling sad because it's making me sad, and we got to like cut this. Or like, if my partner's grumpy, I was becoming grumpy too. I was like, oh, okay, we're doing grumpy right now. And then whenever he was grumpy, I was like, stop being grumpy. I don't want to be grumpy. And then I was like, wait, Layla, you don't have to get grumpy just because your partner's grumpy. Like, your partner can be grumpy and you can just keep having a great time.
Yeah.
As soon as I did that, I was like, oh, Grumpster's in like his thing again, you know? So actually, I totally agree with you. I think that empathy is extremely counterproductive most of the time. And that empathizing sometimes with our partner's higher vibrations can be powerful. Meaning, if my partner's joyful and I want to empathize, like join them in that joy, that can be really beautiful. But with the more challenging emotions, it's like, actually don't meet someone there. If my friend is really sad, I don't need to become sad for them. That's actually exhausting. What I want to do is attune to their sadness and listen, exactly as you've said, to what would support them in their sadness. So I think we make attunement, like a lot of us automatically follow attunement with empathy. I even see this in my coaches and in my professional certification. That will exhaust you.
Yeah.
Because if you're feeling what everybody else is feeling all the time, that actually there's very little service to that. But attunement is one of the most powerful tools, which is I can tell that this person is sad, or I can tell that this person is angry, or I can feel that this person is shut down. I think a lot of people shut down their attunement because they were following it with empathy. So I'm going to feel very overwhelmed moving through the day. if I feel what the Uber driver is feeling, or if I start feeling what everyone around me at the grocery store is feeling, or if I feel what my children are feeling, or if I feel what my partner's feeling. So if I don't want that because that's overwhelming, I'm going to actually shut down my attunement, and I'm not even going to feel that they're feeling anymore. And so that, I think, also contributes to this alienation in the modern day, because we're moving through the world being like, I don't want to know what anyone else is feeling. I'm going to be on the phone, right? So I think that sense of let me attune to other people, but not empathize with them is really important. And I've felt that compassion is the basis of respect, because to me, you can only feel compassionate if you understand and dignify why someone is having their experience. So like if I go into this state, let's say I'll just use my partner's grumpiness as an example. I'm like, why the fuck are you grumpy again? like you're ruining our Sunday, right? Like, how can you be so grumpy? I'm in no way compassionate, but I'm also not understanding. The way that I get to understanding is I'll literally slow down and attune. Okay, the person in front of me is grumpy right now. How can I understand their grumpiness? Oh, well, I have grumpy days. Like I'm not grumpy in the morning. I'm actually grumpy at night. So I'm irritated that he's grumpy right now in the morning, but my grumpiness happens at night, and I don't want to be judged for my grumpiness at night. So, okay, I A, get that. And B, oh, he grew up in a war zone. So like his body, just like I get grumpy sometimes because I grew up with a lot of trauma, like he's going to be grumpy sometimes. And I totally understand that. When I have this understanding that his system is intelligent, and that his body is intelligent, and that we've all been through things. And so this understanding gives me compassion. And as soon as I'm compassionate for someone's experience, I automatically start to respect them. So there's this feeling sometimes of like, it's very hard to respect without the foundation of attunement and compassion. And I had to train myself for a really long time out of what you lovingly call nar behavior, which is like, my like island of humanity is the singular important thing in this reality. And the way that I think about the world is the right way to think, right? It's this deconstruction to me of that kind of behavior into, number one, can I attune? Number two, then can I become compassionate for someone else's reality and worldview and experience and where they've come from and why they're being what they're being? Once I have those in place, and I had to train myself into that, am I thinking about this person's experience, or am I actually attuning to and understanding? Once I have that, then respect comes far more naturally. And so to me, being with a disrespectful partner or being a disrespectful person, I started tracing that back to, where have I stopped understanding the person in front of me? And how can I start to build that understanding as like an automatic response to like, I feel like I want to behave disrespectfully. How can I start like go back to the building blocks? And when I find my partner to be disrespectful, I start inviting them into attunement and then understanding, because I've found that respect tends to follow that if someone does it sincerely.
Right. So this is wonderful. And I've been paying attention to the words that you used. Since this is a very important topic, let's actually go back to see what are the origins of empathy. Why? Majority of us have the capacity to empathize, right? Maybe it will help people because the route to get there could be different for different people, right? So for example, when we are born, if we cannot empathize with our mothers or the initial primary caregiver, if we cannot read, become one, that attunement that you're talking about, it's very instinctive. Because if I cannot read you as early as the memory allows, as early, not even memory shapes later, as early as we come to the world, it's important for us to know, am I safe with this person? Am I not? So that's very important for us. Little by little, as the cognition comes to shape and we mature throughout the years, throughout the context that we grow up in, it's very important for us to move from that instinctive empathy and attunement to that compassionate state. And we need to be able to do that without understanding the other person. Because let me just put a little bit of a difference here. Attunement, I absolutely agree with you. Attunement, paying attention is what we need, right? Relating is what we do as children. If you go to a 3-year-old and say, let's have lunch, but I'm not hungry, right? That's relating. I immediately go back to myself. Am I hungry? Why are you hungry? So relating. Little by little in life, relating, we can keep a little bit, but some people do move away from it or above it or evolve from it. That's all. Why are you tired? It's been only 2 miles on this hike. Why are you hungry? We just had dinner. Why are you sad? We just had a good time. So basically, they are not able to move beyond that, to be there compassionate, be there for the other person without making it about themselves, right? Now, in a daily scenario, the grumpiness that you brought a very good example, which happens a lot with couples. One thing is people who grew up with trauma, actual trauma, that shifts their nervous system, they are usually hypervigilant. It's good and bad. Good in a sense that you walk into the room, you immediately read the room. What is what? You're very attuned to the emotions and what is happening around you, all that. Bad because you're too much attuned. You could be too much attuned and then you forget yourself. You default in the childhood safety zone that you had, whether you have to please others, whether you have to fight or put those walls up. So the hypervigilancy based on childhood experience is a factor here, definitely. Attachment style is another factor, that whether you enter a space or a relationship with trust, that the person is staying, so you open up, or to that reciprocal giving and receiving, or you walk in, shut down with avoidant, dismissive avoidant. I'm not going to let anything or anyone enter me or my space of emotions. Or anxious, that you're very anxious, but then when you open up, you can't really let go of the person. You can't really balance the connection that you have, right? So one thing that is important for people is to differentiate between relating, attunement, empathy, and compassion. I have another element that I introduce in the book, which is commiseration. Sometimes in the life of a couple, both of you experience something that is difficult. And in those moments, I have a term that I use with my couples. I say, soak together before you sink together. So just literally, if they have a bathtub and physical abilities allow, I ask them just to go and sit there without a word. Just experience the pain and, that sorrow, that space energy together without trying to fix, without trying to get, out of it. Experiencing it together. That's profound in creating intimacy. That's one. The other example that maybe help people with those moments of one person is grumpy or vibrating differently than the other is I often say, if I come to you and say, Layla, I feel really sad, right? And then if you're compassionate, you say, oh, how can I be there for you? Do you need anything? Can I hug you? Depending on how well we know each other in the coupledom, right? Maybe that hugs will calm me down or whatnot. So that's one. The other thing is the person expects that I'm sad, I'm grumpy, I'm feeling all the emotions. I come to you and say that I'm sad or whatever that is happening. If you give me 20 minutes of hug, it's going to make me better. That's not going to work in real life. And I think more and more when people listen to things and read things, they feel like the responsibility lies with the person who is feeling it. Yes, but also as a partner, loving partner, you have the responsibility to call it out. I feel like you're grumpy. It's our Sunday. I feel like you're grumpy. Is there something? Do you need your space? Just a couple of guesses. That, before, without pushing the person out. So that's that. The other thing is, if in that moment of sadness, imagine I'm coming to you and say, Layla, I'm bleeding. It doesn't matter if you caused me bleeding or somebody else. I'm bleeding. Somebody's bleeding, right? Instead of saying that, do you need a Band-Aid? Like, are you okay? Do you want to wash it? Do you want a Band-Aid? Not overtaking the whole thing. Like, oh my God, wash it. Oh my God, you're bleeding? Look, I'm gushing.
Yeah. Or I didn't cut you.
Yeah, exactly. Or who deserved it, even worse,
yes,
right?
Totally.
So it's like there are so many different scenarios, but compassionate appearance in that moment is somebody is bleeding, regardless of the cause, the person, whatever. It's a fact they're bleeding. The fact that they're saying they're bleeding, right? And if I go down with them, then who is going to get Band-Aid for whom? Right? So those are moments of connection when somebody comes and says, I'm sad or grumpy, whatnot. Because going back to the acts of love, being loving, if you are in that tender space with your partner, somebody else might not notice that I'm sad or grumpy, but you do. So that makes you special, right? So that piece. The other thing I wanted to say about understanding. This I did not learn initially from research, my research, or the couples that I consulted, or, my clients in general. I learned when I was invited to this other line of job that I have, facilitating high-level meetings. So let's say United Nations, governments, like high-level people are coming, they know their stuff. Each person is walking with really high, I'm resistant to call this ego, but there is ego, because they know their stuff, they know, like what they're doing. So nobody is going to admit or accept that I'm going to go down the route of understanding you. Sometimes they genuinely don't understand each other. But our purpose in that meeting is to produce a white paper that is going to create change for millions of people. So they're going to put that aside. I don't understand you. I don't know where you're coming from. But for the sake of this shared vision that we have, responsibility for our family, for our groups, for our communities, countries, we are going to see what is best in this scenario. So in those moments, I learned that if I put my emphasis on understanding the other person, I go too far on relating. And if we are coming from two different backgrounds, which is often the case, I might be misled because something that is upsetting you or whatnot might not be like your partner, that both of you could relate through trauma, different trauma, right? One person might not really understand it. So that's what I wanted to also put out there, that it's okay. Sometimes you don't understand the other person, but still you can choose to show up with compassion.
Yeah, I suppose like the skill I used around that was to put myself in someone else's shoes and see with their eyes. And you have to be careful, right? Because you can't assume that you can, especially as you're saying, if you come from very different worlds. But that did fundamentally change how I experienced the world, because I used to be so sure that my way was right and that my way was the best way.
Right.
And as soon as I even endeavored to put myself into other people's shoes, I started to see how much the world could make sense from everybody's perspective.
Beautiful.
And like how almost every situation I've put myself in, if I really endeavor to understand their nervous system, their situation, their history, they start to make sense to me.
Right.
And I do think that there's possibly, there's definitely space for saying, well, not everyone's going to have that capacity and you got to get shit done anyways. And also that, yes, you could just be wrong about where they're coming from or why they feel the way that they do. But I think the world would possibly write better white papers if people were willing to endeavor more to understand each other rather than come with the egoic sense of, I don't understand you kind of thing. I've seen that it creates such deep resolution.
Right.
Yeah, just to be willing to see other people's experience, history, and perspective, and how important that is.
Yeah. So what you're doing is pausing, stepping back, and looking at it with a new perspective, right?
Yeah.
So there's another way. Like there are so many people who have road rage.
Yeah.
Often I tell my son, if he's in the car, I'm driving, and he's like, "Oh my God, mommy, he's a bad driver. Maybe he needs to use the restroom."
Yeah, totally.
Maybe he's in pain. Maybe he's in rush. Maybe he didn't have coffee. Maybe he's having a bad day. So just inducing this sort of way of thinking and perspective that there's always another way to look at this.
Totally.
And I don't know if you're familiar with Rumi's elephant example.
So, the different parts of the elephant.
Yes.
Yeah.
So in a dark room, the elephant, whoever that touches whatever part that they're touching it, through that dark room, they have their own guesses. It's exactly the same thing with life.
Totally.
There's always another perspective, if
Totally.
not zillion more.
Yeah. I'm excited to tell you about my 6-week self-pleasure training, Obliss. This is the first course I ever made, and it has been going for over 10 years now. Most of us are never taught the tools required to create deeply rooted self-love, which not only leaves us feeling disconnected from our bodies and ourselves, but what a lot of people don't know is that a foundation of self-love is crucial to building the deepest connections and experiencing the most ecstatic pleasure with others as well. My 6-week sexual masterclass for women, Obliss, trains you to have the ultimate orgasm and fall deeply in love with yourself and your body. You'll heal your sexuality, address old wounds, face things like fear, guilt, shame, and shutdown, and be able to heal and integrate them, and discover how to access the deepest, most profound self-love. So whether you're just dipping your toes into the magic of Tantra, or you are a seasoned sacred sexuality practitioner, you can use Obliss to expand your pleasure capacity and to access the most exquisite self-love. You can join Obliss today. You can get started right away at laylamartin.com/Obliss. That's OBLISS, O like orgasm, and then bliss, laylamartin.com/Obliss. Well, I'd love to finish with a little speed round, love design speed round for a couple of questions. So if you can endeavor to answer them as quickly as possible, we'll just do a couple. So the first is, if you have a hard time trusting your partner, how can you build that muscle of trust?
So going back to the definition of reliability and consistency, first start with yourself. Everything in these 6 ingredients are reciprocal. You cannot expect your partner to close the door of the cabinets in the kitchen while you're leaving that wet, disgusting towel in the sink, right? And he told you multiple times not to do that, right? So first and foremost, the reciprocity of it, reliability and consistency, showing up for each other in that manner, putting a scale behind things. Let's say, for example, a lot of couples have little chips into their trust on a daily basis. Like, did you do that? Did you get that medication? Did you close the door? Did you lock the door at night? Did you, and the partner forgets. So not in a joking way, loving and firm, sit them down or go for a walk if your body allows and say, hey, these are 3 things that are really constantly are my pet peeves. And I feel like they are becoming a little bit of sensitive issues for me. Do you mind? Locking the doors at night, 10 out of 10 for me. That, lovingly and firm, I would really appreciate it. That's one. And then, so articulating it, putting the skills behind it, and not in the moment that the thing didn't happen because they're already defensive, shameful, and shame closes the door for connection. So that doesn't work, right? So that.
Amazing. And so you've mentioned the scales before. Could you break down a little bit more of how you would use the scaling process in a relationship?
In anything that is your, so let's back off. There are quirks that we all have. There are pet peeves that we all have that sends tingles down other people's spine, or whatever that they do or not do that does the same for us. And sensitivities, they are like chip on our shoulders, based on previous experiences, whatever that we have, right? It's important for us to have a good communication around those, knowing them about ourselves and the other person. And then when you put the scales down, I give you a very funny, inappropriate, but hopefully brings home the message. So I hear that so many times. Couples pass gas around each other. Or they leave the bathroom door open. When I meet with them individually, sometimes they tell me, I know I should get over this is, I can't. It smells really bad. There's nothing sexy about it. There's nothing attractive. I'm sensitive to smell, for example. And when I ask them, have you ever told them? Yeah. And then we role play, they're like, oh my God, ew. That's not loving and firm, right? So you can just go to the partner and say that, hey, not in that moment, again, not in that moment. This is important. Just going for a walk or, having a conversation. Hey, by the way, I wanted to bring up something. Okay, don't laugh at me. But on the scale of 1 to 10, You know, when you pass gas in the bedroom, it actually bothers me a lot. 9 out of 10. I want to keep my attraction. Can you please? You know?
Yeah, I think that's super valuable because I think if you say a bunch of 3 or 4 out of 10s too much, your partner, it's like the partner who's crying wolf and you just start to tune out, right? Everything feels like a complaint. I also loved my mom's strategy. She had a really happy marriage with my stepdad for 30 years. And she said, if we had a disagreement about something, we would figure out who cared more.
Yes.
And we would always honor the person who cared more. And over a lifetime, that worked out.
Exactly.
Because sometimes you would compromise in one way or another. So I love that. And I think if you trust that your partner will attend to, let's say, the 7 to 10 out of 10s, then you can also let the 3 to 4s go. Because I think that's a lost art sometimes too, of like, I'm going to let the 3 to 4s go because nobody wants to walk on eggshells.
Absolutely. I love your mother for that.
Yeah.
Very wise.
Amazing. She is beautiful inspiration in how to love.
I'm sure.
All right. So I've got, let's see, 2 more questions here. So you have this concept of sexual harmony. Can you describe what that is and how couples get that?
So we talked a lot about attunement today. Sexual harmony versus sexual chemistry. Chemistry is elements come together, explosion, and very impressive, usually short-lived, and in that moment in time, and then goes away. Sexual harmony is based on intimacy. Into me, I see. I turn myself on when, with what, how, through the 5 senses, energy, context, whatnot. So into me, I see. And into me, you see the parts that I choose to share with you in that moment in time, right? So if we really look at a sexual harmony this way, we evolve over time. A lot of couples come to me with this ailment almost. It hurts them that, oh my God, I really, really want this that we had 17 years ago. And when I ask them, is your diet the same as 17 years ago? No. Is your body the same as 17 years ago? The shows that you're watching the same as 17 years ago? The answer is no. So how come sex needs to be the same, right? So what is important with sexual harmony is I play a tune, you play a tune. So it's like a renewable source of energy and connection. And then every time we create different sound with different tone, contour, different melodies, different. So that's sexual harmony. And that can last a lifetime. And the only criteria that I have with every sexual interaction is fulfillment of everybody involved. Not orgasm, not dangling from chandeliers, not that overexcitement, which could be part of it at times, but fulfillment, whatever that looks like and feels like for you.
Beautiful. And so finally, you started off talking about this disillusionment, especially with long-term partnerships. Do you find in this work, when people deeply apply themselves, is there true hope? You've been married for 24 years. Can people find what it is that they're looking for with a different approach to relating?
Yes, yes, yes. And if I want to leave one sentence before I leave this studio today, is everyone, no exception, everyone deserves to be in the loving relationship they desire, and they can design it. They just need to make sure to put their resources where it matters. That's all.
And bonus round question, if someone's trying to figure out whether to stay or leave, and there's this sense, right, of, well, I could grow or shift things or change, or maybe if we apply this, how do you advise someone who's in that sense of, is this the relationship where I can have everything that I want?
Well, for couples who are listening, people who are listening that they're already in a relationship, I'll give you an example. It's interesting. I was talking at an event, and the cameraman emailed me after and said, "Thank you very much. I left my partner of 7 years." And I was thinking, what happened? He said, when you described the concept of respect, I felt, what am I doing? There is zero respect. And I am communicating, but he puts me down all the time in front of everyone. And this is not a relationship for me. I walked away. So, but also we can't be naive, right? We can't have it all, but we can have it all. So there's this balance, right? What is on stake? If you have little children, if you are not financially stable. So I don't want people to think that, this is what I deserve and I'm just going to get out of this relationship. They need to be realistic. They need to make sure that they really put things into the context of their lives and the priorities that they have. And sometimes they are critical priorities like shelter. And we can't really ignore that, especially, unfortunately, for women. That's important. So having said that, there are certain red lines that I don't think anybody should live through. Anybody. We live only once in these bodies. And, I'm a very spiritual person, and I don't think that God intended for us to endure everything that comes our way. So that's that. Emotional, physical, financial abuse that is evident, like they are apparent. Everybody else is telling you and you're just turning the blind eye, to it. So that's one. The other one is if you're feeling you're isolating yourself from everybody else, you are so afraid or scared or feel judged or ashamed to be seen with this person in any situation, or because you know that after every interaction, especially with loved ones, they come back and say that, please get out of this. What is this? What is happening? So that would be another red light here. The other aspect of it is if you are feeling that there's nothing left of you, you feel like, I don't even know if I ask you what your hobbies are, you're like, you're looking for the person to provide that guidance for you. So unless you want that might be something that some people want. One of the relational configurations that I have here is parental and child relationship, right? That one person leads, the other person follows, right? That's okay, good for you. But if you're really contemplating on a daily basis, what am I doing? Is this the right thing for me? Maybe there's a reason for you to think that. Maybe there is a reason that you need to really go deeper. Look at the pet peeves. Are they just around, he's not smelling the right eau de cologne? Or is it because they are constantly putting you down? Or, one of the fundamental or some of the fundamental ingredients that we are talking about are missing. Then you have a decision to make.
Absolutely. Well, I think the experience I'd like to leave everyone with from this beautiful conversation, and thank you so much for everything that you're doing and supporting people to fall in love and stay in love, which is so incredible, and giving them a pathway of understanding how to build a relationship entity that is really special, which I think is what everybody wants.
Yes.
Like it's practical, it's grounded, and it's also something that you can create over a lifetime. And what I'm kind of struck by is, I went to work at becoming a more respectful person. I went to work at becoming a compassionate person. I made that my focus. What is it to actually not just be an extraordinary human, but to be an extraordinary partner? And when I started there, it shifted my partnership because I had dignity as a partner. I knew that I was doing those fundamental things that could build this amazing path of partnership. When I lacked those skills, I couldn't believe in myself enough to even build a beautiful partnership. I actually felt too much shame and guilt over my behaviors. And one of the things I will leave everyone with is that I think in society we have this, cultural phrase, people don't change. And one of the things that I realized in relating is I changed, and people don't change who don't want to change.
Yes.
But that I've seen so much in working with couples that people can actually grow in leaps and bounds when they learn, when they hear podcasts like this, when they read a book like this, when they do the work. And so also, if your partner has any willingness to change and be open to new ideas, to know how powerful that can be. And for all of us listening, our willingness to change and grow and adopt these new ideas can move mountains over a lifetime, because people change when they want to. And we can learn all of these ingredients and all these skills that you're talking about and actually apply them in beautiful ways. And to me, that's one of the greatest acts of love in this lifetime, is to show up for your partner in ways that weren't imprinted in you, to show up for your children in ways that maybe weren't the ways that you were raised. Like, this is how we actually literally seed more and more love all over the planet. So thank you for giving people such a blueprint and pathway to be able to do that.
Of course. Thank you for the platform and for sharing your beautiful presence and informed questions and insights with me too.
Yeah. Gorgeous. That was
Thank
wonderful.
you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this Tantric Life. I am Layla Martin. This is the home for the realest conversations about sex, spirituality, polarity, conscious relationships, and all kinds of topics that help us live the absolute most incredible lives. Please check out the next episode. Please go ahead and leave your rating and review on Spotify or Apple or YouTube. It's so helpful when you do that. If you want to stay connected to me, the most helpful supportive thing you can do is to head over to laylamartin.com, sign up with your email address. That connects you to me if you want to study deeper with me, if you want to receive my deeper teachings. I do it predominantly via email. Finally, you can check me out on Instagram at @the Layla Martin. And thank you so much for being here.